Starting with the confirmation of the long speculated sort of Qatar Airways has bought 25% of Virgin Australia, which we kind of knew that was coming, but it's come with a twist. Jake says a bit more.
Yeah, so this was confirmed this morning in a very early morning press release from Virgin Australia. Virgin confirmed speculation that Qatar is looking to buy a 25% stake in the airline. We'd been speculating, a month or two back that it was going to be about 20%, so 25% stake in the airline. It has also announced that it's going to be wet leasing some aircraft from Qatar Airways to operate services to Doha. So we don't know what kind of aircraft yet. We know it's going to be a wide body. I mean, obviously, you can't really fly narrow body planes out to Doha from Australia. That would be insane. But they're going to be looking to start these flights from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth to Doha starting in mid-2025. Now, this will be the first time that Virgin has done these wide-body international flights since it came out of administration. And it's, a real kind of expansion of this partnership, because it's already doing code-share flights with Qatar Airways. And I wondered at first, when I read this, why Virgin was going to be wet leasing planes instead of, expanding its code share. But then I realized, Adam, then it tweaked for me.
Then it dawned on you.
It dawned on me, Adam, that potentially, if I'm reading the rules right, potentially this could allow Qatar to, in a way, circumvent these restrictions that it's under the bilateral air service agreements that are preventing it from operating more flights into Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. As we remember, last year there was a big to-do about the Transport Minister blocking further flights from Qatar Airways into Australia, blocking Qatar Airways operated flights into the major airports. There was still, they could operate as many flights into minor airports as they liked effectively, but into the major airports it was, very, very limited, like I think 21 flights a week or something like that. Maybe a bit more. But now with this Virgin deal, with this wet leasing with Virgin, it'll be Virgin operated flights. Virgin flights sold by Virgin. So, there will be Virgin flights, but it will be Qatar plane, Qatar crew, Qatar everything else under this wet leasing agreement. And if I'm reading this right, in the available capacity for Australian international airlines, so airlines operating from Australia, like Virgin or Qantas, to Doha, there's 28 frequencies available in each direction per week with any aircraft type to or from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth to Qatar.
So the extraordinary thing about this, that is basically a year ago, Catherine King, the Transport Minister, effectively said that Qatar couldn't have any more flights from Australia into Doha. They said, you've got all the capacity we can give you. If you want to put on more, then you need to use bigger aircraft. They basically said, we can't give you any more services.
Or fly into smaller airports.
Exactly, right? But this is what's happened. And the word effectively here is important because they haven't done anything wrong at all. And I don't even think they've been sly. They've been very clever. But what we're going to have is Virgin Australia flying from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, presumably and Perth to Doha. So it's them as a domestic airline that's doing this, not an international airline. But extraordinarily, they're going to be using Qatar aircraft and presumably also Qatar crew as well.
As a wet lease, yeah.
Yes. So basically, this is a Qatar service from Australia to Doha, but it's not. And this, like you say, therefore opens up the potential of, 28 more flights a week?
If I'm reading this right. Disclaimer, I'm not an aviation law expert.
Now, the one of the sort of twists here is that in order for this to happen, the government have to clear this. So it has to go through what the various competition commissions are. I don't know if it's the ACCC and what have you to certify this. Whether or not this is going to be a problem, we don't know, because clearly a year ago they said you can't have this extra capacity. Now they are saying, now effectively it looks like they're going to be able to sort of find their way through here. So we don't know whether this is going to be cleared or not. Now the interesting thing with this is, let's just say somehow the government stopped them putting on these flights, would Qatar then be interested in taking this 25% stake in Virgin? Because presumably being able to put on this flight is the big carrot that's made this happen.
Yeah, it's a real as you say, as we've both said, clever move here by Qatar. And we have to remember Qatar and Virgin have been, pretty tight for a while. They've got this code share agreement already going on. Virgin went to bat for Qatar last year to talk about the. Virgin went to bat for Qatar last year saying, if you block this Qatar expansion, it will hurt us as a code share partner and it will prop up Qantas. Virgin was pretty vocal about, allowing these flights in from Qatar. And, there was a lot of commentary about how the Transport Minister should allow Qatar to operate more services into Australia because it would, drive down prices and offer more competition for Australians looking to fly through the Gulf to Europe. So this is a bit of a boon for Virgin as well, because it's kind of they're getting these wide-body international services back without actually having to take on a lot of the risk themselves. They don't have to buy their own planes. They don't have to, hire international crews, train international pilots. They don't have to, go through hoops to get international wide-body aircraft that are very, hard to get at the moment. It's a way to let them fly wide-body, long-haul international routes without flying them and kind of test if that's a viable market for them again, because they have been doing international, but it's been short-haul with their 737s.
But this is a kind of weird back-to-the-future sort of thing, because initially when Virgin Australia launched, it launches Virgin Blue, and it was a domestic low-cost carrier, and it proved to be quite successful. And then what happened is it kind of evolved into becoming Virgin Australia, which is a full-service carrier aimed at taking on Qantas. And a large plank of doing that was having these big 777s that could fly these longer haul routes. This is about taking on Qantas. This failed spectacularly, I think it's fair to say, when Virgin Australia ended up going into administration in 2020. I was just trying to Google it, and I'm not sure if it was $7-8 billion. It was an extraordinary amount of money. It wasn't working. Now, when it came out of administration, the new plan was to essentially kind of right-size itself, as the kind of parlance goes, and to have a smaller fleet of 737s and just focus on those domestic routes that work. Now, they are, in a sense, going back to the old strategy. Now, as Jake said there, which is very important, it's a lot less risky because, one, these aren't their aircraft, presumably won't be their crew. And also, they're backed by Qatar money. So in a sense, they get a free hit at this, which is very, very interesting. But nonetheless, this feels like a major U-turn on what we were even hearing 6 months ago. This is now effectively going back to the old strategy. Whether this is going to work or not, we don't know. How deep a pockets Qatar have to keep this going, we don't know. The next thing I was going to put to you, Jake, as well, we've talked about how this affects Virgin Australia. If you were Qantas, what are you going to be feeling about this? Because suddenly now, Qantas has a monstrous rival. They have got Qatar with a lot of money, very ambitious airline, now owning 25% of Virgin Australia, giving them their big planes. If you are Qantas now, suddenly their rivals got teeth.
Potentially. I mean, this still has to go through the Foreign Investment Review Board. It still has to go through the ACCC. I can imagine that the ACCC might look a bit favourably on it, considering that it would possibly increase competition. I don't know if Qantas would be freaking out about it necessarily. I mean, they're still, pretty dominant. They still have this code share with Emirates. They're still flying their own aircraft to Europe through Singapore. It's definitely something I expect that Qantas would be watching. I don't know if it's necessarily something that they'd be worried about. Just given that it's kind of a trial run essentially, is what I'm reading to this. Jane Herdlichker has said that they're kind of dipping their toes into the water with these wet leased flights. So it'll be interesting to watch. I don't know if Qantas is going to be tearing their hair out over it just yet.
And finally, the other interesting thing about this is it was actually, I'm just looking at the article now, it was back in February that we first heard that the Virgin CEO, Jane Herdlichker, would step down as the CEO. She's still there.
She is.
She's been there for a long time. I've heard whispers from my snouts on the ground that she's working just as hard as ever. She doesn't appear to be somebody putting her feet up. Now, whether or not this deal had much to do with Jane, we don't know. This could have been kind of above her head with Bain.
Bain Capital.
Bain Capital. But she still would have been involved, I'm sure, in selling the airline. I would say now, if she were to leave very soon, which we presume she would, this is a job very well done. She's got this airline through COVID. She's rebuilt its fleet. She's actually got it making money, which hadn't happened in a decade. And now she leaves it with a big investor on the brink, possibly, of going back on the ASX, but in a very, very, very strong position. Now, whether she was forced out or whether she's left of her own accord, we don't entirely know. But I would say if you look at her, whatever it's been, 4 years or 3 or 4 years in charge, that's a job very well done. A job very, very well done.
Yeah, I think she can sort of leave with her head held high. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Jane Herdlichker can leave with her head held high when she does leave. And I'm sure there'll be some congratulations and what possibly other jobs lined up waiting for her to walk into if she wants to take another tilt at being CEO again. But she's run a tight ship.
Would you, if she took over as next editor of Australian Aviation, would you welcome that move, Jake?
Possibly. I mean, it'd be a significant downward step from CEO of Virgin Australia.